working on this Hydroboost yesterday, and I just had a monumental disaster. And I'm hoping that I can share some info with you guys. That way if someone else is interested in rebuilding one of these, they can avoid my drastic mistake. I ended up having to forego rebuilding it. I ended up having to buy a whole new unit because I had just destroyed it when I put it back together in a very, very stupid error that I should not have made. So when you take one of these apart, so they go together like this, and I don't have any of the shafts or the springs in here, just for ease of showing you what I did, and hopefully to show you what not to do if you're going to do one of these. So when you take it apart, there's a lot of spring pressure, of course, because you've got the springs on the shafts in there. So you've got your one big hole here. That's where your piston goes, this cylinder here, and that's where, you know, your output shaft goes. And if you see down the end there, that's where the push rod goes into the master cylinder. And then right here in this hole, when you press the brake pedal, that's what you're pushing on. And then you have this hole here. See if I can get some better light. This hole here, and there's a check valve. There's a check valve in this hole, and that basically controls the flow of the charged gas in this accumulator. There actually are some Hydroboost units that have spring pressure in the accumulator instead of charged gas, but this is compressed gas in this particular unit. And this valve controls the, basically controls the output and the flow of that compressed gas. This small hole here that I'm pointing to. Well, my mistake was this is the first piece that goes in that hole. And it's not very clean, and I apologize for that. But you push that down in that hole that I just showed you. And then the next thing that goes in there, let's see if I can get it back out for you. Oops, dropped it on the floor. The next thing that goes in there is a little ball bearing that sits right there in that divot, in that hole. That's, your check ball for this check valve to control the flow of that compressed gas. And then what goes on top of that is the actual valve part. And let me see if I can show you this. But this piece, there's actually just a valve that comes in and out, and you can pull it all the way out. It's just this little valve that goes in, and you put it back in like so. And that's the side that's going to be facing the open half when you open it up, the whole Hydroboost unit. That's what you're going to see on the face, is those three dots or those three little prongs. But the valve goes in the other way. You flip it over and it's just, one solid hole. And that's the way you insert that valve. That valve sits on top of this, this yellow piece here that I had. But what I did is I just put it together and I didn't put the ball in where it goes. So I just put it together like that, and I put the whole unit in. And so what happened was when I put it in and I activated my brake, the pedal just shot to the floor. And a loud, just frightening sound just shot all the way down, because what happened was, without that ball in the check valve, I just got a fully pressurized system, and there was no way for it to relieve pressure because that ball was gone. So there was no way to lift the pedal back up, and it was fully engaged. And it actually, and that check ball, it keeps that accumulator, this is the accumulator here, and it's full of compressed gas. And when it opens, when you press the brake pedal, it allows charge to go out from that accumulator, but without that check ball there, you just get full pressure. I mean, just total pressure. And then there's no way for it to shut back off. And it pressurized so quick and so fast, and you know, it didn't have any kind of control because that ball wasn't there. You can actually see right here on my input, you know, this is the side that goes in through the firewall and connects through via a push rod to the brake pedal. Well, when it slammed down, it actually broke the collar. This is a ball joint socket, that how it connects. It actually broke it. You can see there. It's cracked. And that's the force that it had. And just that little ball, you forget it and it's kind of a big deal. So anyways, I'm hoping that that saves someone some trouble, and that you don't have to run into that same problem if you're putting it together. I don't know if that's helpful or not. Another thing, the best source that I've found for getting a rebuild kit is from a place called PirateJack.com, and I'll leave a link in the description for you if you're interested. But one thing to keep in mind is that most of these systems, oh, I got my kit all messed up here. I'm going to save this and file it away because I might have one of these apart again at another time. And I really only use 2 seals to do this. And so I wanted to show you here. This is really dirty because I ended up spraying some solvent on it, but I'm hoping that you can see. This right here on the directions is a diagram of that check ball or that check valve system. And if you can see that right there, that piece that you're looking at in the diagram, that's the front of this, that's this valve that I showed you, that's got the, you know, it's got the valve sticking through, and it has the drill motor chuck looking thing on the other side that sits in front of that yellow piece. So on the directions, you see that's what this is right here that my finger's pointing to, but then the rest of the stuff behind it, like this piece on the directions, is different than the unit that I have. Essentially, this is a universal kit that they use for just about any Hydroboost, but there's enough of a difference between different systems and a little bit different configuration through different years and so forth. Like if you were to pull one out of like a 95 diesel pickup Chevrolet, it's going to be a lot different than my 84 GMC is going to be, just because of, you know, that's how things go over time. But the seals are remarkably interchangeable, and you'll find that if you order a kit through PirateJack, you'll have all the seals you need. But just be aware of that, and that's one of the problems that I ran into, was that because the parts are different on my instructions or on my parts list in the paper than what I actually have, I wasn't able to determine exactly how that valve came apart. And that's important because when you take this, when you separate the unit, that valve has a propensity to try to fall out. So the best way to take it apart is not to do it the way I did, just right here on the bench free form, is get a vise and hold right here, you know, right here on this cast part that holds that accumulator, and you stick that in a vise, and then you'll be level and you'll be able to separate these, you know, get back those bolts off just a little bit at a time so you don't get that full spring pressure when you bring it out. And then you'll be able to catch, you know, that valve before anything falls out, and this, and that hole right there is where that valve sits for the accumulator. So don't make the same mistake that I did. So anyways, what I have now is a brand new unit. So that's exciting. I've just got a whole brand spanking new thing. And these are pricey, which was the whole reason that I really didn't want to have to buy one of these. I tried to, you know, spend the $35 it cost me for the kit. And if I remember correctly, they even have free shipping there at PirateJack. So, I mean, it was $35 for this seal kit, you know, and several hours of labor to get the Hydroboost unit out of the vehicle, and that's a whole job in itself. But if you rush yourself and you don't do it correctly, you make a big mistake like I did. I don't really like to advertise my mistakes, but I'm thinking that maybe someone can learn from this one, so I'll go ahead and share it. You know, if I can get away with it, I like to leave the impression that I don't make mistakes, but, you know, I'm human, so there's one I can share with you, and hopefully that helps you. So now, anyways, I'm going to see about getting this installed and put back in the truck. Alright, so I got to take this mounting plate off of the old unit and transfer it to the new one. So go ahead and get started on that. There's a snap ring right here. Get my handy dandy snap ring pliers. These ones are 90 degree. I'm not going to be able to use those. Sometimes I don't like snap rings. They're alright. See, this one's kind of bent up, so you can kind of see that I was having some trouble getting on it. Then I got to spin this nut off of here, and I think the best way to do this is just going to be with a punch and a hammer. But I'm going to have to bring it out here to my handy dandy vise. I don't have a vise in the shop as of yet. Crank that sucker down. It turns down. Yikes. She just doesn't want to go. She just flat don't want to do it. I don't know. What do you need to do? You're going to take that off.
This part of that pump, this got to go on the new pump?
Yeah, this is the plate. Can't tell if it's moving or not.
I think you better heat it.
Needs a little heat. Alright, now I gotta take the nut off of the new one, but since that plate isn't there, it should be easy peasy. Just like that. Not quite handled yet. No heat required. The torque spec is until you can't turn it anymore. That's how you know this one is tight. Alright, I am going to get this thing all screwed up in here. These bolts are, or these nuts are 15 millimeter. If you do any kind of wrenching on anything, I can't talk up this D-wall 20 volt cordless impact enough. I just can't even imagine going back to not having it. What's that? That ball keeps it from that check ball keeps the accumulator from pressurizing with all of its pressurizing ability. You know, it actually keeps it from being fully pressurized. You know, it's a like a valve